Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Harvey. I'm with the Energy Information Administration, and I'll be hosting the meeting today as we discuss cryptocurrency mining and our interest in it. If we can go to the next slide. I need to start with a little bit of housekeeping before we really get into the agenda. The first thing to point out is that this WebEx call is being recorded, and it may be, in fact, that we plan to post it on our website or use it internally. All attendees are muted and will not be able to share video during this webinar. And if that creates concerns for you, please drop off the webinar at this time. The point of our discussion today is really that we want to hear from you during a comment period, which will start in a few minutes after I've given a short presentation. Participants who've commented or made a request already to speak via email, and I think there are about 4 of those right now, will begin when we start doing this. But if you as a participant would like to comment, you can make a request through the WebEx chat. Use the WebEx chat and please chat to all panelists. Provide your name and organization and we'll add you to the presenters list. You can also leave a comment in the chat and request not to speak if you would prefer to do that. I will call on you after my presentation when we're ready for you to speak, and we will give you 3 minutes to do that. It's going to be a strict limit of 3 minutes, and we'll talk a little bit about that right before we get started. I would, before we move forward into the agenda as well, like to introduce Melissa Lines, who's got her camera on right now as well. Melissa is an important coordinator of a lot of this effort, and she's here in case something happens to the technology to me, and she'll be able to jump in so we can run smoothly as we go forward. And again, before we go forward, I would like to say Melissa and I, as colleagues, are working with many more EIA employees who've been trying to pull this together as a chance for you all to speak your minds with us about this issue. And I'd like to thank them all, but we're not going to try to list them all right now. So it's going to be between me and Melissa as we go forward. Melissa will be dropping off the camera here, though, in just a second, because she's going to be working frantically through our discussion today. Let's go to the next slide. So again, let me welcome you all today. I will be talking a little bit about why we're here and what we're interested in out of the session today. I'll be doing that by talking about who we are. Many of you know who we are pretty well, but some of you might not. And so I'll introduce the U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA. I'm going to talk a little bit about our interest in energy use by proof-of-work cryptocurrency miners. I'm going to talk a little bit about the questions we have about what a proposed survey should look like in order to fulfill our purpose in this. I'm going to give you a better sense of opportunities moving into the future to engage on these issues as you like, and then we're going to turn it over and manage your comments as we go forward. And we'll continue until the comments are done or we run out of time one way or the other. Let's go to the next slide. The EIA is the statistical and analytical agency within the U.S. Department of Energy. We were established by legislation in 1977 by combining existing organizations and clarifying our mission, which really is to be responsible for creating a central, comprehensive, unified energy data and information program to collect, evaluate, assemble, analyze, and disseminate data relevant to a wide variety of energy issues within the United States and abroad. I'd like to emphasize that the reason EIA was created was to be able to have a part of the government that could work to pull information together to inform serious debates about policy. We're not interested in the policy necessarily ourselves, but we are interested in producing information that would be useful to you all as you discuss policy issues going forward. We currently operate 62 surveys. In our more than 40 years, we've operated different numbers at different times depending on what issues came up. But we've been operating 62 surveys of energy producers, consumers, others for some time. Adding a new survey requires approval from OMB, and I'll talk about that process a little bit more because that's the process where you'll be able to, in the future, make comments about what we're doing and why we're doing that. We can go to the next slide. There's been a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of discussion by policymakers, by interested observers, by participants in the proof of work cryptocurrency mining area for some time now. We looked at the issue with regard to energy, which is our interest, and published back in February on our website a report to look at and to explain why we thought it made sense to move forward with an attempt at a survey of cryptocurrency miners. A couple of the points from that report. Our preliminary estimates, we did a top-down and a bottom-up kind of estimate, which were rough, but our preliminary estimates suggested that electricity used from cryptocurrency mining probably represented somewhere between 0.6 and 2.3% of US electricity consumption in total. That's a significant piece, and that suggests understanding it could be important as we go forward. We realize that the primary operating cost for a current cryptocurrency mining facility is expenditure for electricity. So the relationship to the electricity system remains extremely important. And we identified a couple of key challenges associated with actually tracking cryptocurrency mining use of energy. Those include the difficulty of identifying cryptocurrency miners among the millions of US energy electricity customers, and the dynamic nature of the crypto market, where mining assets can be moved to different areas with lower electricity prices. We've seen some anecdotal evidence of that in the past. There are other issues as well. The cryptocurrency mining responses to demand response, to wholesale prices, and local effects of activity around cryptocurrency mining. So we've seen a robust discussion here. We've seen a couple of places where we thought there were interesting and important issues that maybe we could produce information by implementing a survey. We can go to the next slide. We have a particular interest. We are interested in energy use in particular. And so for today's discussion, which we want to really focus on your ideas, your concepts of what we could or should be doing as we go forward, there were three questions we kind of came up with that made the most sense to us and that we would prefer, or we would certainly encourage your response to. First, what specific factors do you consider to be the most important regarding the use of energy in proof of work cryptocurrency mining? Second, what data, if any, could we collect with a survey of cryptocurrency miners that would provide useful information about the effects of the activity on US energy systems, including any associated benefits or costs? And then third, are you aware of existing information that could provide useful data on energy use in place of us instituting a survey? We're always interested in faster, cheaper, easier ways of providing the information we believe is necessary for the discussion. So again, today, we're most interested in hearing your thoughts to these with regard to these questions. Next slide. So today's meeting is simply a first discussion. This is us beginning to try to develop a proposal that, as I said, goes through an OMB process. Under the Paperwork Reduction Act of 1995, federal agencies have a whole process associated with publishing a notice in the Federal Register concerning a proposed collection of information, and initially allowing 60 days for public comment in response to the notice. We are targeting a 60-day notice to be posted to the Federal Register about a cryptocurrency mining survey this quarter, if possible. The nice thing is you can easily provide a response to our notice using the internet or email at addresses that we'll include in the notice. There will be plenty of information about this. We have a robust website that contains a lot of information. We are also active on various versions of social media, so it should be easy to follow what we're doing. Most notably on X, we're at EIAGOV, and that's always a good place to many of you maybe came through our postings there already. Once we've received the responses to the 60-day notice, we'll sit down, we'll think about it, we'll make any revisions, and we'll publish another notice in the Federal Register, which will provide another 30 days to comment on that response, including anything that we revise based on the first 60-day process. We really encourage you to make use of this process to officially record your interests, because that's a great way to know more. Today, as we're developing that first proposal, we want to hear from you as soon as possible so that we can help incorporate those ideas into what we do next. Next slide, please. So in particular, as we go to hear your comments, I'm going to explain a little bit more about how to comment during the webinar. I'm going to call on respondents, and we will unmute you to comment for not more than 3 minutes. We're keeping that limit in order to be able to hear from everyone and to keep everyone on the same basis. I'll begin with those of you who expressed interest in speaking by email. We have 4 of you, and so we'll have at least 12 minutes worth of up to 12 minutes worth of comments. If again you'd like to be added to the agenda and make your comments today, but you didn't email us back, or we don't know about that somehow, please include your name and organization in the chat. The chat sent to all of us who are operating that. I think that's one of the options that you've got. We will provide a bell tone at 2 minutes and 30 seconds when you have 30 seconds remaining during your comment period, and we'll ask that you begin to really wrap it up and really focus your comments at that point. And again, remember, as I discussed, there's going to be plenty of future opportunities to comment publicly on our efforts in this area before we initiate any kind of data request. So if you don't get all of your ideas on the table today, or if something occurs to you later, there's going to be plenty of opportunity to do that. I will say, when I call on people, we'll give you a couple seconds. Sometimes the technology can be a little tricky to get going. You'll be unmuted and try to get started. If the wait is a little bit too long, then what we'll do is I'll go to the next person on the list, and we'll put you on the bottom, and we'll get to you over time again anyway. At the end, we'll see if there's any last-minute folks coming in when we run through the list of people. But as soon as we're done hearing from as many of you as indicated that you're interested in talking, we'll go ahead and wrap up the session. And again, if we have too many and we go too long, we've left, I think, an hour and a half or an hour for this process. If we go longer than that, we can go a little bit longer, and we'll see how that goes. So that's kind of the expectations of what to do and how to do it. And with that, I'd like to start with our first commenter, who is Tom Mapes with the Digital Energy Council. Tom, we're gonna unmute you, and if you could start your comments whenever you can.
Hey everyone, and as mentioned, Tom Mapes represent the Digital Energy Council, and many of our members, leaders within this space. First off, I want to thank you all for reaching out and being proactive, working towards a kind of a resolution from the first go around, and secondly, kind of a more transparent process here. I know we've had several conversations along with this, but I think the main concern from the industry side of things was the way of which kind of the rushed OMB process. The process from the first go crack at this was a real concern within the industry. Declaring an emergency and running through OMB, I know ultimately was shot down, and I think that's why we're gone to this point. And I guess kind of first things would be kind of, can you explain that process, what the thought was there, and why we didn't go through the formal notice and comment rulemaking process, as it seems kind of the thought here to do as well? I think that's the first concern that we ran into. And secondly, the concern that all this data, ultimately will be kept within not weaponized, I guess is a way to put it there, and kind of how you guys can confirm or kind of how you're looking at this as well. And I think another thought is to kind of tell the full story, that ultimately at the end of the day, these are energy infrastructure, grid infrastructure opportunities that this industry brings, particularly on the flexibility and the demand response side, piece here. I know that's a high priority within all agencies right now on the energy front. Full transparency, I used to work at the Department of Energy. They've been working on these issues for decades now. And where right now there's a concern between the generation and demand side of things. So, we bring a real opportunity here. And I think that really needs to be fleshed out within some of these discussions and collection. So sorry, I kind of laid a few things on you there, but if you could speak to some of those.
That's fine, Tom. Thank you for your comments. As Tom points out, we used a slightly different process in our earlier attempt at developing a survey, as we were trying to figure out how to manage that going forward. It did not involve, at least in the initial round, although there was a requirement to move forward, to do something quite as thorough as we are planning on doing right now. That approach didn't work, and we're happy and feel really good about creating the opportunity for you to help us think through this as we decide how to go forward. And again, bring information to the discussion that allows different viewpoints to have some hard information to kind of work off of, which is kind of what we really do for a living. Let's switch now to Margot Paez with the Georgia Institute of Technology, and if we can unmute her and hear from her. So we may have gotten stuck there somewhere. We'll put Margot back a little bit later, and we'll try again. Let's go to Michael Postupak with the Blockchain Association next.
My name is Michael Postupak. Hello, my name is Michael Postupak. I am a policy analyst with the Blockchain Association. The Blockchain Association is the leading nonprofit membership organization dedicated to promoting a pro-innovation policy environment for the digital asset ecosystem. We represent nearly 100 member companies reflecting the wide range of the blockchain industry. As EIA continues to study cryptocurrency mining and its associated energy use, we believe that it is important for EIA to take a holistic approach that recognizes proof of work's role in supporting secure blockchain networks and accounts for cryptocurrency mining operations' contributions to renewable energy buildout and grid balancing programs. On the first point, proof of work is a consensus mechanism that enables distributed, unaffiliated blockchain participants to create and maintain decentralized, disintermediated, and open blockchain networks. In blockchain networks such as Bitcoin, proof of work is crucial for ensuring robust security, creating new digital assets, and incentivizing participants. In fact, it is the expenditure of energy that helps to secure proof of work blockchains because it creates an overwhelmingly prohibitive cost for bad actors seeking to take control of the blockchain network and attack it. On the second point, cryptocurrency mining can benefit the U.S. energy sector. In fact, Cryptocurrency mining's ability to easily be turned on and off and located anywhere offers opportunities to incentivize renewable energy buildout and help balance electrical grids. As EIA continues to study the cryptocurrency mining sector, we encourage EIA to account for the energy benefits this industry provides. To close, we want to emphasize that we stand ready to answer any questions you may have or provide any other assistance as EIA continues to study the energy use of cryptocurrency mining. And we thank EIA for holding this webinar and engaging with the industry. Thank you.
Thank you for your helpful comments. Let's go now to Jack Gleam with TeraWolf. Can we unmute Jack? Jack, are you there? Okay, well, let's we'll try again in a minute. Let's go back to Margot Paez. Oh, was someone there? And let's unmute her with Georgia Institute of Technology. Are you there?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, and thank you to the EIA for inviting me to speak today. My name is Margot Paez. I'm a PhD student at the Georgia Institute of Technology in the Civil Engineering Department's Network Dynamics Lab. My research focuses on Bitcoin mining's energy use and environmental impacts. I am also a research fellow at the Bitcoin Policy Institute, so today I represent myself as a researcher at Georgia Tech. You have asked me to address 3 questions: the key factors regarding proof of work energy use, the data the EIA could collect from the mining industry via a survey, and existing information that could replace a survey. First, what is lacking is an understanding of how the protocol governs energy use. Unlike traditional data centers, Bitcoin has well-defined constraints on demand. You must understand how the difficulty adjustment works and that there is a separate market for computational power that provides the elasticity for the demand of Bitcoin, the currency. There is economic pressure from this market that makes reducing electricity costs the main way that miners can compete. From here, everything else follows. Beyond this, the obvious bottom-up data matters in the same way as traditional data centers. Machine efficiencies, cooling equipment, other IT devices, PUE, WE, and so on. Next, there isn't enough accurate bottom-up data publicly available to replace a survey. That being said, what data the EIA could collect depends on the industry's willingness. As you know, the EIA was sued when it attempted a mandatory survey to collect data. The industry is wary of the motivation behind the EIA's data collection efforts. At the same time, they understand the importance of data transparency and that research of this kind could benefit them if done fairly. I believe we need a proper study, but I also think the EIA is the wrong organization to lead this. The only way to get industry buy-in, oh, of course my notes just closed on me, sorry. I'm reading from a page and my notes just went to the screen. Okay. The only way to get industry buy-in is to hand this over to objective third parties. Hence, I suggest that the EIA support a university-led initiative that our research lab at Georgia Tech would direct. I have already demonstrated that I can collect energy data from the industry through a process that respects both scientific integrity and company confidentiality. The reality is that I am already in the process of collecting the data you need, and I have buy-in from some of the biggest companies in the industry. Our lab has a strong relationship with the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, where Armin Shahabi is currently leading a similar data center study on behalf of Congress. So at Georgia Tech and Lawrence Berkeley Lab handle the data collection and analysis and produce a report such what Lawrence Berkeley has produced for Congress. I EIA, the utilities, the public, and the proof of work mining industry will all win. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Margaret, for your comments. Let's go next to Lee Bratcher with the Texas Blockchain Council. If we can unmute Lee, and Lee, start when you're on.
Thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Well, good morning, and appreciate you guys hosting this. I'm Lee Bratcher, the president of the Texas Blockchain Council. We are a trade association representing primarily Bitcoin mining and energy companies, both in Texas and across the country. And I wanted to express appreciation for Tom's comments at the outset, also the Blockchain Association's comments, and then we certainly agree with Margot. She's done great research on this topic, and you know, I'd also like to say that the views that I'm expressing at this very moment are the views just of myself, and don't represent the views of our individual members necessarily. But I do think that the Bitcoin mining industry would be open to, you know, sharing information with the EIA or with a university-led study. Those are both great ideas, and I think more information, the more data that gets out there, the better for the industry and for the United States as a whole. The more information that's shared, the more even our detractors will realize that this industry holds tremendous benefit, not only for incentivizing renewable generation, but also as a capacitor for grid stabilization and frequency balancing across the country. I do think that there's quite a bit of concern around the fact that Bitcoin mining was singled out in this survey, and you know, Bitcoin mining is a data center, and we think that surveying data centers in general would have been a better approach, and you know, certainly distinguishing between flexible data centers and non-flexible data centers would be a good way to get at understanding the difference between Bitcoin mining data centers, AI, cloud computing data centers, et cetera. There are certainly further differences in these data centers. Tier 1 versus Tier 3 data centers primarily make up the difference. There's about a 20x cost difference in building out AI data centers versus Bitcoin mining data centers as well. So there are a fair amount of differences, but from the EIA's perspective, it did seem strange to us that Bitcoin mining was singled out given our energy footprint. And so we look forward to collaborating with the EIA, and I think holding meetings like this are a great step in the process. And I appreciate you guys giving me a moment to give a few remarks.
Thank you for your comments, Lee. Like to go next to Jack Gleam again with TeraWolf. If we can unmute him and see if we've got him.
Hey, Stephen, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect, thanks, Stephen. So I just wanted to echo that, you know, the energy system is a complex, you know, as we all understand, it's a complex system. But when, you know, grid and transmission operators are looking at data, some of the most important pieces of data they're looking at is peak demand data, and that's generally relatively easy for any electricity user to obtain from their utility billing information, and putting you know, mining energy consumption within context of certain peak demand hours would be beneficial to sort of every stakeholder in this process. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next, we'd like to go to Alex Kutchi with Marathon Digital Holdings. If you can unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, and thank you also to EIA for hosting this. I just have a quick question on the notice. Is there any way to get added to a list of interested party for when the survey comes out in the register?
We can look into that. We definitely want to make that easy to do. So I don't think that would be difficult. We're going to when we come to the end, we'll have a email address that's kind of the best way to communicate with us in that. And so it probably makes sense to go ahead and just drop us a note, and then we'll figure out how to make sure that you know what's going on.
That's very helpful, and we want to be helpful in this process. So thank you for hosting this, and thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. So we have run through the list of people that have expressed an interest in speaking. I'll hang on for a minute or two here to see if anybody wants to jump in at the very last minute. If we could in the presentation go to the very end with that thank you slide that has the email address. There we go. We are trying, as we're going through the process ourselves, we are trying to make sure that we're here for as many people as possible, and that we're coordinating all that information as we develop our proposal and we begin going through the 60-day, 30-day comment period of any proposal that we come up with. And so it's just a lot easier if we kind of have everything kind of coming in the same place. So if possible, please use that approach to communicating with us as we go forward. Any last minute folks who want to jump in here and make a comment, or are we getting close to done? Oh, so we do. We have Brian Shinobi, not with any particular organization. Can we unmute Brian and give him a chance to talk?
I'm from Bitcoin Magazine. We did some coverage of the emergency survey earlier this year and the lawsuit that resulted from that. I just wanted to ask quickly, during that whole process, I had seen a second survey that was put on the registrar following the normal comment period. Has that been put on hold or postponed, given how the lawsuit played out?
So I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. We don't have a survey proposal in right now. That's what we're developing right now. In the original proposal, we had an initial, it was all combined in the same proposal. We had an initial survey to try to gather enough information to try to create a longer term survey. And so I think there was information about both of those at the time. That's the only thing I can think of that would have indicated any other, more than one survey from us. Our position right now, our condition right now is we're using this as a way of coming up with an idea that how to move forward, and that it will now go through that whole paperwork reduction act proposal. Is that helpful or?
Yeah, that is a question. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Okay, sure. So we do have a couple more people who've jumped on. That's great. Let's go to Mark Kramer with SBC Global next. If we can unmute Mark. Mark, do we have you?
One moment, Steve.
Sure. This is a lot. We have a lot more participants. We wanted to be flexible about responses, and so we're pushing our technological sophistication, or certainly mine, really, really hard in this.
Let's move on to the next.
Okay, let's move on then, and we'll come back to Mark in a minute. Let's go to Dennis Heidner with the Rextor Group. We can unmute Dennis and see if he's there. Dennis, are you there? Or
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. The question I want to ask, and it has to do with a lot of the feedback you've heard so far, is that Bitcoin is an operation that can be responsive to grid loads and can be shut off quickly. Is on your survey, I think you need to or not survey, but on your forming your ideas, is ask how frequently that has happened, and is the utility they connect to supports using them as a low demand response application, and would they actually do that? Because Bitcoin, as they mentioned, is competitive. Price of electricity makes a big difference, but Bitcoining also, in its competitiveness, is if they're not connected, they lose a lot of money. They still have the capital cost there, so there may be significant incentives for them not to disconnect when it's really important that they do disconnect. So are there the economic signals coming from the utilities that say Bitcoiners pay a higher price during this time if there is a need to disconnect? And is there not? So those are questions for both the utilities that serve them, the wholesalers, and also the Bitcoin operators, is how would they handle those things?
Great, thank you. Thank you for your comments, Dennis. This is exactly what we're looking for, is the things that you all think are important for us to be paying attention to. And this is certainly an issue that's come up, we know, over time. Let's try again with Mark Kramer. Mark, are you there this time? Did we get you?
Yes, yes, I think so. I pressed the right button this time. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk. I'm just a member of the public with an interest in energy issues and environmental issues. And I'd just like to say a word of thanks to the Energy Information Association for initiating this process to get information about energy use from crypto mining operations. I think that we have to be open and honest about the future of the electric grid, and make sure that all the actors, utilities are open, utilities and others are open with providing information about how much response and demand they will be putting on the grid, so that we can manage these issues with grid reliability. And the only way we can do that is to get the information. And it's very difficult to get that information much of the time. So I really thank the Energy Information Association for doing this, and just as a member of the public, and because I think it's crucial to have this kind of oversight, just as a member of the public. So thank you very much for what you're doing, and I look forward to hearing more about the issue and keeping up on it, and commenting again as I learn more about it. It's just such an important issue going forward for the future. And so thank you for keeping on it, and representing all of the energy consumers out here and the general public who are concerned with clean air also, and the effects on our climate of increased energy use. So thank you for the work that you do. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. Melissa, you can see more carefully than I can. We have any other last minute commenters? We don't have anyone else on the list right now.
We do not, but happy to hang on here for another couple minutes if anyone wants to put in the chat or raise their hand, and we can call on you.
So while we're waiting, let me and just checking out if there's anybody left to talk to. Let me just go over again. We're going into a process. So well, do I understand correctly? We have Tom Mapes wanting to speak again?
Yes.
Okay. Well, Tom, we've got the time, so come on back. Let's unmute him.
Hey, no, just for the good of the order, and you might have been jumping into it, for folks who aren't as versed in the processes, do you mind kind of walking through how this would go, the timing, whatever you're aware of right now, just kind of historical precedent within these notice and rulemaking, et cetera, things like that, just so folks who aren't, deal with this often kind of have a grasp of what's going on?
Sure. It is a regular process. I will admit, most of the time for us, we're just reapproving surveys, so it's not usually very controversial. That might not be true this time, but it is a regular process that allows for lots of commentary. Again, we're hoping within this quarter, so the next couple of months, that we'll be able to put a proposal out. The process to do that is to put it into the Federal Register where it's published. I know everybody doesn't follow the Federal Register. And again, if you've got concerns about being able to keep up with that and through our social media or other things, please let us know at the email address we've got here, and we can figure out how to make sure you don't miss it. It's a 60-day process. It's designed to be very, very easy to respond to it. You don't need lawyers to write letters. You don't need to write it as a letter. They'll accept emails. There's a whole lot of different ways to comment. So it's very very much designed for anyone who's concerned to be able to comment very, very easily. It's just not a very typical thing for people to be looking at, I think. At that point, when that's posted in the Federal Register, there'll be 60 days. A lot of people are likely to respond. We will go, and what they're responding to is, this is our proposed survey, and this is why we think it's really important, basically. Sort of a paper and an attached proposed survey. At the end of that 60 days, we'll take all the information in as well, and we'll look at that. We'll make any adjustments, based on new information that we think are necessary. We will respond to major issues that get raised in that process, and file a new proposal or a new posting for the Federal Register. And at that point, there's a 30-day review process. That's really, as much as anything, for OMB to kind of catch the statistical experts at OMB to kind of catch any last concerns, and see if we've been able to resolve most of that as we go forward. And then they decide whether or not we'll be allowed to move forward and institute a survey. So that process is pretty clear. Again, if you don't follow Federal Register notices much, it might be a little bit harder to follow, but again, reach out to us or follow our social media in order to see that. We would then, after approval, we would be putting it together and moving as quickly as we can to start collecting the information. That can sometimes take a little bit of time as we work out issues, respondents to understand, that sort of thing. So who knows exactly how long that will all take, but we're interested in figuring out what value we can add here, and then moving quickly at that point, and clearly and openly. I see Lee Bratcher would like to speak again. Can we unmute Lee and give him a chance?
Just a quick question. Would the EIA consider allowing the survey to be broader to include data centers? I think, obviously you could distinguish in there between flexible and non-flexible data centers, so that you could still get at the same information around Bitcoin mining that you're wanting to know. But is that something that you guys would consider?
So what I would say is, at this point, we're considering everything. It's very helpful for you to point out what it is you think it's really important for us to consider, and we will absolutely consider that. We really don't, at this point, have a preconceived notion. We're not looking necessarily. I mean, we kind of put together the earlier version of the proposed survey from the last round. Not necessarily looking at doing it the same way. We really do want to hear from folks and think about that. So we will definitely. That issue is now on the table. Clearly, it was anyway, but it's now clearly on the table again from you, Lee, and we're happy to do that. We have somebody named Jason. I don't know that we have any more information about, don't have a last name or an organization, but if we could unmute Jason, and Jason, do you have a comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jason Browder. I'm the head of government affairs for Marathon Digital Holdings. We're the largest publicly traded Bitcoin miner. It was just to echo, I think we kind of stole the thunder. We're actually sitting together in Alberta, Canada, on a trade mission here to meet the government. But I do think that the industry will be skeptical if traditional data centers are left out in a survey, and the EIA specifically carves out digital asset data centers. And so I just want to reiterate, Lee's question to the agency and department as you're thinking about this and wanting to work together in a collaborative approach with the industry. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So shall we take just a minute and see if there's any last people wanting to jump in right now? I think we've probably pretty much gone through the list and given people a lot of chances, so I'm not sure we need to continue. And again, I've been over the process. This is, can't emphasize enough, this is the beginning of the process, not the end of the process. And there'll be plenty of chances to continue to engage, and we encourage you to do that. If you have any questions about how to engage, or if you want to make any further comments before we go into the official Federal Register notice, again, there's the email address here. But not really hearing more right now. I think maybe we'll draw this to a close, and I really thank you all for your comments. We are, I guess, we are planning on creating a listserv around this. That's another way to do that. And Melissa, do you have an idea of how we're going to want to manage
that? Yeah, thanks, Steve. So we are looking at creating a potential listserv with potentially, if interested, with the attendees of this, so that we can make announcements of when that 60-day and 30-day notice come out, so that y'all can hear about that.
And if you have other people that if you have other people that you know who aren't on the call today who might be interested in joining that listserv, again, use the EIA-crypto@eia.gov email address. It looks like we do have one more. We have Dennis Heidner again, I think, from the Rextor group.
Yes, thank you. And my background is electrical engineering, and I have worked in traditional data centers. So one of my concerns is on the argument that we should include traditional data centers, is they have a very different role in life. Is they're supporting data centers now are supporting customers nationwide and sometimes around the world. So the idea that you can ramp them up and ramp them down is a little more restricted by where their customers are located. Whereas a Bitcoin operation is basically mining operation for tasks that are localized for the proof of the worth on the coins. So whenever you work on the questions and organize on how you're going to ask the questions and go out to the respondents, there may be some things where you need to figure that into very carefully, because even one of the things you're hearing now is that the AI large language models are going to consume a lot of the energy, but not all data centers are going to be large language models. A lot of them are going to simply be data storage systems for consumer stuff, some of their online websites. Most of the large data centers, traditional data centers, have the ability to throttle down the machines in the data center as they move from time zone to time zone. So they will actually move things around, where for the Bitcoiners is the idea of throttling things down at night as the load goes down, or during the daytime, means loss of the revenue. Where in the data center, traditional data centers, that's dependent on the customers instead. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, our EIA's kind of view of the world is that our job is to try to help produce information to help inform these discussions. So it's been very helpful for several of you to talk about some of the considerations we need to have in mind as we go forward. But I'd really like to thank all of our commenters who have been very, very helpful today. And again, encourage folks to continue to comment. I understand we're going to create a listserv, and we'll actually promote that listserv to keep people up to date on on how we progress through whatever process comes out of this as we decide what proposal to put in place. So I think with that, not seeing anyone else interested in speaking, that we'll go ahead and draw this to a close. And again, many thanks, and thanks to the team at EIA who helped pull this together and have it work as well as I feel like it did.